Hello and welcome back to the Kindness Code. My name is Carmel Sawbury and I'm here with my wonderful work bestie, Chelsea Bailey. Today, we're going to talk about what makes a house a home. We talk about children's homes, but how do we genuinely make that building, make that environment a true home? Chelsea, how do we do it?
Well, we think about the home and what it looks like, but actually what I want to talk about today alongside that is the feeling. And home should be a feeling. I think that's probably my key message. Home is a feeling.
Fantastic. So let's look at the actual building, because we get really good feedback actually. Our homes have a homely feel. They are like a home. But what can we do, people working in the residential homes, what can we do to make the kind of the bricks and mortar of the actual building feel like a home?
Mm-hmm. Well, if we're talking about the environment, we do have to, it's something that Ofsted judge us on. They're going to make sure that it's safe, that it has a homely feel, things like that. But there's also...
Can I just jump in here?
Yeah.
What blows my mind in care homes as we create this home, we create the soft furnishing, the loveliness, and we have to have fires right on every door.
That's where I was going.
Sorry, that's my moan, Chelsea.
Yeah. Well, that's where I was heading.
So how do we? Because that just is my biggest bugbear.
So there's red tape around stuff, isn't there? There's things that we have to do, like fire safety and having a fire exit sign, for example. But, just do the bits of that you absolutely have to. We don't have to go crazy with those things, and always check in, because sometimes the rules around it change, not so much on a fire exit sign, but on something like a sticker that might say drinking water, for example. Probably not necessary. So those kind of things can feel quite institutional and not very homey. So we have to kind of distract from those things so that you don't really pay attention to them, or certainly that the children don't anyway. So we want to be creating a cosy environment that feels like home. Comfy spaces, lighting is really important. I'm not going to kind of go on a tangent and sell myself as an interior designer, but those things are important. It shouldn't be bare minimum. We don't want to be seeing white walls and grey furniture everywhere, and it's cold, it's clinical, it's not cozy. There should be pictures on the wall. There should be photos of the children and the teams doing things together. There should be notes and messages and artwork with fridge magnets on the fridge. Those things that make a home lived in, and people live here and this is their safe place. And so when I talk about home being a feeling, that's the stuff, it's identity. So when a young person walks through the door and sees that their picture is in a frame, or that their artwork is, or their silly message they might have written you or whatever is pinned on the fridge, it creates a sense of belonging, and wow, that's important to you, that means something, and this feels like my place of belonging.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I'm sure most homes are reasonably well decorated and they have nice things in it, but it's actually the things that, if you're working with the kids, you can actually do sort of easily yourself, like shout about the stuff, which is, I guess, would be normal in a non-care home situation, but to be really thoughtful about making our children recognise it as their home, isn't it?
Yeah, and let it be lived in. It's. There's in one of our homes, we've got a poster, a framed picture in the wall, kind of as you walk in, and it says, "Welcome to our beautiful chaos." And I love it, because that's what every home is, isn't it? It's just your version of beautiful chaos, and it's lovely, because that's kind of the message, isn't it? Is whatever goes on here goes on here. This is our home, and we love everybody in it, and everybody that is in that home has to feel that love and that sense of belonging, and that is their place of safety. And when we think about looked after children, particularly in residential homes, but foster settings equally, they're going to have lived in lots of places, most likely. That's a high probability, and it doesn't feel permanent for them. And when you think of home and what home should be as an adult, when you think about what home was when you were little or when you were growing up, what we want that to feel like, what I hope for most people that feeling is where you felt safe. It's where fond memories are. It's where you felt loved. It's a place you want to revisit, even if just in your head. And I want that for children that are in children's homes or foster care. It doesn't have to feel like their forever home and that this is where I'm going to live forever, but I want them to revisit it fondly, that place that I lived at that time was my home for that period of time, and it was where I felt safe and I did feel loved and I felt seen.
It's interesting because you're talking about as a child and thinking back to, I lived in a couple of different places as a child, different houses, and going back there, you think almost if we think of it, if this child came back to us in 5, 10, 15 years' time, would they walk back into this home and go, and kind of take that outward breath and go, this is somewhere that I felt safe and seen, isn't it? And I think almost we see it from that point of view, imagining that child in the future. And I know it's difficult and doesn't always work out, but we can do our best to make that a thing in the moment, isn't it? In the now.
Yeah. And that's why home is a feeling, like love is a feeling. And that's what we need to fill it with, So how the adults treat the home matters, It's not just your place of work where you expect there to be, a cleaner coming in and, mopping up after you all of the time. We look after the home and we treat the home with respect, and we're putting a wash on, we're chucking the dinner on. We are caregivers in whichever way you want to look at that. It might be a parent, it might be a sibling, it might be that you play a bit of an auntie role, whatever. It's what you bring and how you respect the home and how you engage in the home. Meal times are really important, coming together as a family to share dinners, lunches, breakfasts, whatever, starting the day and ending the day together as a community, as one, checking in, how was your day, cooking together, I'm putting the dinner on, do you want to come and give me a hand? Those really thoughtful, therapeutic, beautiful moments that are just micro connections, but they're huge. And they're the feelings that you remember and hold on to, cooking dinner together or having a laugh around the dinner table, and those extended dinners that when everyone joins and we've finished our dinner 20 minutes, half an hour ago, but we're all still sitting around the table talking about something funny that happened earlier in the day, or, whatever it might be. And that's what makes a house a home. We're not wanting adults to turn up, I'm at work, and these are my jobs for the day and nothing else can fit in, because you're not. You are in a home that belongs to these children where they live. And so your main job is to create a home over a house and a place that is just somewhere for them to stay right now. It doesn't matter if they're with you for 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years. The feeling should exist the same.
I popped to one of the homes a little while ago, and we have amazing Night Awake team who are really, really fantastic with the children, and they clean the homes beautifully. And I turned up, it was quite early, and I think there was like freshly baked bread, and the table was all beautifully set for breakfast, and like I still can kind of walking in there, it felt so lovely. The home felt loved and cared for, and the smell of bread, and they kind of made me a cup of tea and this fresh bread, and it is that feeling, and it is so beautiful to appreciate that. And actually then I actually really love turning up at dinner time, because I get someone to cook my dinner for me, which is great, and the kids, we get them to the table, and that again, that sense of community and being looked after is, it kind of feels, it sounds easy, but sometimes it's difficult to do as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, because you are at work, so you're thinking about lots of other things, but we never, ever, ever want our children to feel like they are a job and that they're surrounded by people who are doing their job and are at work. They need to feel like they're surrounded by people that are there to spend time with them, love and care for them and look after them. And that, that is what we observe, and that is what we see. But, you can be distracted and waylaid by other things from time to time. But, what you just described there, the fresh bread and,
it's magical.
It's lovely. And it feels like a warm hug, doesn't it? And that's that feeling that I'm talking about. And outside of sort of the more physical things that we're talking about, like cooking and those kinds of things, I kind of routines and predictability as well, that creates a home. So when we think about a home and children in whichever setting, you kind of know what time your children get home from school. You kind of eat dinner around the same time every day. You have a pretty standard bedtime, and you know what your recreation time looks like in between. And we want that for our children too, so we know what time dinner is, we know what time the end of the day is when we all come together. But also that feeling that you just said about, baked pastries coming out of the oven or whatever it might be in the morning, that predictability of knowing when I wake up in the morning there will be breakfast on the table for me, and before I go to bed I will go to bed with a full tummy, and there will be dinner on the table for me too. And having, I can remember being a kid and my mum coming in with the hoover, and I'm watching the telly, and she's got to lift your legs up so she can hoover out, and it's so annoying. But actually those things are lovely, because there's an adult in the home looking after your space and caring for you, and that's what we want in our homes.
I have the same memory. You go, lift your legs up.
Yeah,
it was someone saying,
and you're turning the volume up, so you don't have to. You want to hear programs over the vacuum.
But it's someone saying, I care about you, and I care about this home to make it a home. What would be the challenges maybe sometimes around creating that safe environment for the children and that predictability?
Mm-hmm. Well, we need the children to feel like they belong, and that it's safe. And so everything kind of comes back down to, as it always does, the relationships and connections that we have with other people. So I talked about it, we don't want it to feel temporary. And so I guess some of the challenges in a children's home can be things like staff turnover, for example, shift changes, people not showing up for their shift they were supposed to. You know, there was a planned activity, for example, with a young person, and then let's say that person is not very well that day, or, you know, the circumstance.
It must be for a child, because it feels like most children who've come to care have had parents or adults who didn't have the resource to look after them and keep them safe, and they've kind of been let down by adults. And so it is difficult, isn't it, if kind of knowing that your job is to not repeat those patterns, to be there and be the safe person, and do the small things. It says, I care about you, I love you, I'm here for you.
And that lack of consistency in our presence, you know, if we don't take that seriously, you know, we have to be able to commit that to our children, because that is when they feel like a job. That is when they can feel not important. That is when they can feel, I guess, not seen and kind of a bit forgotten about, you know. When you're a parent, you don't get to say, I don't feel very well today, so I've got an out of office on my door and you won't see me today. You know, you kind of have to just muddle through it. I'm not saying that I'm not saying that is what everybody should be doing in a work setting, but where you can, you know, show up for them as consistently as possible, because the children need to know, you know, that they're feeling, are you going to reject me? Are you going to give up on me? Are you going to leave me? So when we don't show up for them, that feeling, it kind of grows, because it's, are they not here because of me? Is it because I did something wrong? Is it because, you know, I did whatever XYZ the other day when that person, you know, those feelings start to come up. And actually, if we can show up, you know, I've got a bit of a cold, or I've got a bit of a headache, and I say, I know that we had, you know, I don't know, the cinema trip planned today, but I'm just not up to it, but I thought we could have a movie day on the sofa. That is, you know, I'm still here. I didn't not come, and I'm going to show up, and I'm going to be here for you. And that presence and that consistency really, really helps create that sense of belonging. And
that home is a safe place where people are going to be there for them, because that's
safe.
When we think back to, if we're privileged enough to have a home that and a childhood that had that safety, that's what, if we say we're going home, that sense of going home is that sense of actually going to a safe place, isn't it?
Yeah. Children need to feel, like you say, a safe place, and they need to feel a sense of safety. So knowing the children well is another thing that adds to that feeling, that sense of belonging. That's, you know, we should know everything about our children, and they should feel that. They should feel that we know them inside and out, and that we know when they're having a bad day and when they're not, and, you know, what kind of their triggers are, and what events might be coming up that might be a challenge or that might be exciting, and when it's been a good day at school or it hasn't, or we know if they like to be asked when they get in, how was your day? Or we know if they don't like that question and they just want some time to decompress. You know, those types of things, like knowing our children well, not knowing the basics so that we can get through a day or a shift. I've done this job. I've been in this industry for, more than a decade. I've done it for a long time. So I've done all of the roles and all of the jobs in these settings, and I've worked with the children, the families, and all of it. And, I've always hoped that, and it doesn't mean I've always achieved it, but I've always wanted to say, I want to be able to go home knowing that I did everything I could to bring my best self and make somebody's day a little bit better, and I want children to, if any of them remember me in the future, I want them to remember nothing, I don't, nothing out of the ordinary in it, but that I was kind, or that I listened, or that do you know what I mean? That,
I can't remember who said it. People don't remember what you did, they remember how you made them feel.
Yeah, exactly that. That's exactly it, nail on
Someone
the head.
did quote that. I'll probably remember putting the show notes eventually. but it's how we exactly make the kids feel, and actually showing up and not letting them down, making the bricks and mortar, the rooms, the environment feel homely through the love that we show them through doing things. Actually, this is the whole thing, and sometimes it's difficult to show, I guess, physical love. You can't just be hugging them because they might not want them, but we can do wraparound love, can't we? Totally. By our actions, not just
And it's a beautiful thing when you see how relaxed children are in the home. When they first arrive, they might not be. They might spend a lot more time in their bedroom. They're feeling a little bit more anxious. They're not quite comfortable. We might see, I've certainly seen sort of some teenagers not wanting to come out of their bedroom until they've got, their makeup and their eyelashes on. But as time goes on, that goes away, and we're kicking it on the sofa in PJs, and we're very relaxed, and that's what you want. This is safe for you, and you can this space is yours, and this is where you belong. And you just be you comfortably in these walls, and everything is predictable. The people are the same. We're going to keep showing up. We know you well. We care for you, and we're going to give you what it is that you need. Because there are barriers, and I think thinking about things like your rotas, for example, I just get chills even saying that word, because as anyone knows, working in a residential setting, rotas can be a challenge. But we should think about what our rotas look like and the impact that has on the young people, as well as how we balance well-being for staff, because it isn't, air quote, normal to have a different person coming in to look after you every 8 hours. It's not, that's really, really hard. And so how do we think about attachment? How do we think about feelings of the young people, and the fact that there are these reminders for them often that they are in a children's, air quote again, home, or house. They know that there's a handover taking place, and that they're being spoken about. They know that they've got to get the updates.
Sorry, I just realised, I'm on this journey about learning about it. In your own home, you don't think your parents every 8 hours don't rush off to an office and talk about you or what happened in the last 8 hours, but the children know that that's happening every time there's a shift handover, don't they? Yeah. And obviously it has to happen. We have to keep the kids safe, and that's what we need to do. But that in itself is must be quite disconcerting for a child. Yeah.
And it's about thinking about how can you make that
less of a thing,
more organic, the most therapeutic version of that. And I've seen, some young people really struggle at handover time, because that's a really sort of anxiety-provoking thing, especially if, let's say, they've had a difficult day. They're now going, oh gosh, and now they're all in the office and they're telling everyone about what a terrible day I've had, and that doesn't feel nice. So can we do that in a different way? Can we communicate that in a non-verbal way, for example? Is it something that can be read? Is it something that can be caught up on later? Is it a phone call that can be had before that person arrives? Those types of things, so that the children it's more organic in what way works for your setting.
And actually, if a child has had a difficult day, because I've been home sometimes, and some people walk through that door and the smile's on their face, the vibes are there, and they bring their positivity and love through everything about them. It just kind of seeps out of them. And other people who are bringing their own stuff to work. And I think this is why it's such a difficult job, is because actually if you work in an office, you can kind of turn up a bit grumpy or hungover and you're kind of okay. And it doesn't really work in a children's home. You have to bring, the love has to be part of the way you walk, the way you smile, the way you talk.
Yep. And that's why I think this is an important topic, because the difference in a home, in a house and a home, and the feeling that I talk about is it comes from the adults, and we have to remember and be mindful, even on the days where we don't feel our best. Yes, you are going to work, but where you are entering your place of work, which isn't usual for most, your place of work is somebody's home, and they're every single day, 24 hours a day. That is where the children live. It is where they go to sleep. It is where they wake up. It is where all of their things are, and they don't have access to perhaps the people that they might like to see more often, like family members, friends from afar, etc. So we have to hold in mind when we step over that threshold, I'm in your house now. And when you go to somebody else's house, that thing I do a lot, where we kind of go back to being an adult. When you're an adult and you go into somebody else's house, you're really mindful that you're in somebody's home, aren't you? And how you carry yourself and how you respect somebody else's home and all those types of things. You know, we have to be mindful that, yeah, I might have had a bad day, but hey, guess what?
You wouldn't go to someone's house and ignore them and go and sit in another room, would you?
No. Would say, I'm not in the mood right now, you know, or shut yourself away
don't
somewhere.
ignore the children, but when you go to someone's home, you would tune up. And I know, and it sort of sounds, it's a lot of what we talk about, it feels like it's very easy to sit here and talk about it, but it's literally the job. And that's what makes a job challenging, doesn't it? It's because actually in a lot of other jobs you can kind of turn up if you're not in your best place. But actually, to do this job well and to work with these kids and show them love through our actions, you've got to bring your best self every time, don't you?
Yeah, you have. And you just... I think that the takeaways for me are the feeling... Should we do the
top tip?
And the feeling... Well, and the feeling that we carry.
Top tip,
because like I said, we have to... The barriers to overcome are all of the reminders that we're at work and that this is a professional setting. You know, because the children are seeing us, like we just talked about, doing handovers, shift changes, new staff coming in, staff leaving, but also all of the documentation that we have to do throughout the day. You know, we're constantly having to nip into the office or open a laptop or whatever it is and record something, write it down. It's a constant, isn't it? And, you know, young people get really used to it. But we don't ever, ever, ever want to create anything that feels institutional. We have to create something that feels like a home. And so although we have to do those things, it's about finding the right time to do it, the right place to do it, in the most organic way that is always, always, always putting the child at the centre, and that above everything, we are entering a home that belongs to the children where they live, and we want to create a really warm, kind, special, loving environment that the children enjoy being in.
Love this. Thank you, Chelsea. So house is more than just the bricks and mortar and the soft furnishing. It's the love that we bring. Again, so much easier said than done, I think, but actually it'll be one of those things when you bring it and you bring the positivity, it will be infectious and it'll be easy to keep doing. Yeah. Love this learning curve. Thank you so much, Chelsea. This is the Kindness Code. Tune in for next time for more top tips from the amazing Chelsea Bailey.
Thank you so much.